And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to host one of the most hotly anticipated debut thrillers of the year. Out tomorrow, Real Easy by Marie Rutkoski. Here to give us the inside scoop is Marie, live from Brooklyn. Marie, welcome. Tell us about this book.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I love seeing the advanced reader copy over there. This is the finished copy, and it has a beautiful spine too. I think you can see a pearl earring, which plays an important role in the book.
Yes, yay. So Marie, give us your elevator pitch. Tell us the skinny, give us the hot dish on this book.
Sure. Well, it is a book that's set in the 1990s and revolves around a strip club in Illinois. And it is the story of what happens when one dancer goes missing. Well, and one dancer is murdered, another goes missing, and a third tries to get to the bottom of what happened. So it's a police procedural. It's also a book that's told through the viewpoint of many different characters, from the dancers to the dancers' kids to detectives to a bouncer. There are it's kind of a kaleidoscopic view of the world of the strip club and the police who are investigating it.
Yes, a kaleidoscope is the perfect way to describe it, actually. And I cannot wait to get into every delicious detail because I have a lot of questions and I know all of our mystery and thriller loving friends do as well. So I just want to welcome everybody. Hi, welcome. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, Murder by the Books channels, my channels, our private Facebook group, wherever you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time, and we're going to get down into it. If you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, here's how it works. Every Monday, I give you my hand-picked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. This is the Las Vegas of book clubs. So what happens on Mystery and Thriller Mavens stays on Mystery and Thriller Mavens. You can ask Marie anything about her writing process, her research process, all these starred reviews she's getting. Ooh la la. I see the questions are already coming in, so let's get into it. So Anissa Joy says, hello, Sara and Marie from South Carolina. Hey, Anissa, top mystery thriller and Maven community member there. Always a pleasure to have you, ma'am. She says, I am here for it, strip club. Yes, you are, and so am I. Thank you. Marcy Ann Cagle, welcome, ma'am. Of course, she is Shiver Me Pink over on Instagram with her 29,000 passionate followers. She is the founder of the Nashville Girls Group, another 25,000 followers over there, and the founder and co-founder of Bitchy Bookworms, which is the hottest book group on Facebook with 75,000 members. She is amazing and her reviews are lit. See what I did there? She said she is excited to read this. Marcy, I'm excited for you to read this and I'm even more excited to read your review because you know I love your reviews. Kathy says, hello from Texas. Kathy, hi, welcome. Great to have you as always, top member there. Melissa says, hi, Sara Marie. Sorry I can't stay, but I'll definitely be watching later from Australia. Thank you for stopping by, Melissa. Great to have you. And I see Vicky, Joanne, Irma, Jane, everyone else. If I missed you, I'll catch you later. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk about this book. Liz says she is so excited. She is the winner of my Real Easy giveaway and is now on her bedside table. Liz, let us know what you're thinking, what part you're up to. No spoilers. You know how it works. Marie, let's talk about this. So you set this book in the off-limits, very secret world of strip clubs. Let's talk about what gave you that idea. Let's talk about your research. Let's get into it. Start with your idea, please.
Okay. Well, about 20 years ago, I worked as a stripper. I worked at two different clubs. I worked the summer after college and then during my first year of graduate school, two different locations, and states. And time has gone on. I've written many books for children, young adults, but I always wanted to write in some way about my experience. And my experience does not involve a serial killer. This book does have a serial killer in it. But as I was thinking about what kind of story I would write, there were two moments that happened at the club that came to mind together to form the plot of Real Easy. And one moment was when I was backstage and I was getting my makeup done, and I heard one dancer talk to her how a girl found dead by the side of the road had been identified by her breast implants, because breast implants have serial numbers. I know it's kind of grim, but it's like dental implants. Like
Oh
if
my gosh.
dental record there, you can identify a body by by breast implants. And I
I
heard
didn't
that.
know that.
I didn't know it either until I overheard that. And I was so disturbed, as I think, most people would be. And I remember hearing that, but also thinking, I can't hear this. I don't want to hear this. Because if it is true, then maybe I shouldn't be working here. And at the time, I felt like I needed to work there. And so there's that moment. And then there was a second moment. Um, and it was when one of the dancers was discovered backstage, and she was really high. She was a very responsible woman, and none of us thought that she had actually deliberately taken a drug. We thought that somebody had slipped it into her drink, which can happen sometimes. Sometimes customers think it's fun to just put a drug in a dancer's drink. Sometimes they think it will help them convince the dancer to go home with them. It's messed up. But she was just completely incapacitated, needed to get home, and needed someone to drive her. And I felt I felt like I should drive her home. I felt like that was the moral thing to do. But I will also admit that I felt scared to do so. This was in the year 2000. I had a cell phone, but it was very basic. I mean, I don't know if you remember like how
Oh, I remember.
there are like little bricks of a phone. You could like ask someone very laboriously or play Snake maybe on the phone. There was no GPS. It was not like you could get directions on your phone. And I'm really bad at directions. She was clearly out of it. There was no way she could advise me on how to get to where she lived. And I just thought, I'm nervous about driving her home at 3 a.m. And I knew that her home life situation wasn't great either. So I didn't know what it would be like when I brought her to the door, if I, made it there. And so I did not step forward. Somebody else did. And fine. There was no problem. But when I thought about what to write about that time, those two moments came together to form the the inciting moment of the book, which is when one of the star dancer of the club, Samantha, even though she's heard this rumor about a murder, one of the new dancers who's pretty clueless and can't really take care of herself and needs to be shown the ropes. She is high one night. Samantha agrees to drive her home, and their cars run off the road.
Yes. So those two moments are very present in my mind because I remember them, and then Samantha drives her home, and then her boyfriend is like, "Where have you been?" He's not believing that she just was helping someone else, and some of the other. I loved how you captured this sort of competitiveness backstage and offstage between the women, between the dancers, and that when Samantha takes this, sort of new, lost, no, innocent, younger new dancer under her wing, the other ladies are like, "Oh, very kind of you." But there's this weird sort of cutting, almost cutting Samantha down for helping. It's so fascinating to see the interactions between these women. So I was fascinated by it. Hello, Eliza Jane Brazier. Can't wait to have you on next week for Good Rich People. Thrilled to have you here. Thank you for joining, for entering the chat. We're thrilled to have you. And I see some great questions are coming in. Melissa from Australia saying, you worked as a stripper. I'm definitely coming back for this. It sounds fascinating. Absolutely. Marcy would like to know, ooh, great question, Marcy. How do you select the names of your characters? Yes, because the dancers have their real names and then their stage names. So let's talk about all of that. Ooh.
Oh, yeah. There's this moment where one of the dancers, whose stage name is Violet, whose real name is Catherine, she thinks about how she doesn't care what the girls' real names are. Um, Though I will say that, at the club, if you know a dancer's real name, it does say something. It says that you have a kind of connection that's outside the club. You know that person. There were some girls I worked with, I knew their real names, and others I just never did. And I think there is something, I think sometimes dancers can be really um, warm and connected to other girls at the club. And sometimes they understandably want to have a kind of wall between their professional life and their personal life. Um, and so it's acknowledged in the book that to know a dancer's real name is something kind of special, because I've shared it with you. But Catherine, aka Violet, she thinks that she doesn't actually care to know what the names are because she thinks that the names that the women choose for themselves say more about them. So whenever I chose a name, and I try to make it not confusing for the readers because I know that there are a lot of points of view anyway. And so each chapter, if it's from a dancer's point of view, has both their real name
Yeah.
and their stage name.
Yes.
And so whenever I chose a name, I had sort of two questions in mind. One, for their real name, what would fit? Like, what would their parents name them? What is a good 90s name? Like, what is a good name for somebody born in the late 70s, like I was? And then what would this character choose for herself? What might, like, there's a dancer whose stage name is Paris, and I think that suggests that she thinks of Paris as like this romantic, wonderful, like sexy place. So I think that the names are very meaningful, and I really appreciate that question. Thank you.
That's such a great question, Marcy. Thank you so much. And thank you for the thoughtful answer, Marie, because I was wondering, what it said about each of them, because the young girl is struggling with what her name should be and then and it's what she should be called, and then she's trying to create something cool and sexy but honoring her friend who's become her mentor, Samantha, aka Ruby. And why did Samantha choose the name Ruby? And it just is so fascinating. And I like how and I held the book up, you have the person's real name, which I now know you've looked up from the 70s names, 70s girl here as well. And then what they would aspire to, each one being so unique. That's so cool. Thank you for the great question. Let us know what other questions y'all have. There's so much to talk about here. I'm just scrolling through, making sure I didn't miss anything. Maria, I also want to talk about the fact that you have earned starred reviews from Kirkus, from Publishers Weekly, from Booklist, the trifecta of the three industry book reviewers have all awarded you stars. Congratulations. What a huge accomplishment. So I'm going to pop them up here on the screen. So let's start with the king of them all, Kirkus, who raves that, I'm just going to pop this up for a quick second. Rutkoski's writing emphasizes a larger point, that even in ugliness, loss, and tragedy, there is humanity. Is that the larger point you wanted to raise? Or did you read this and think, my God, my brilliance knows no end. I didn't even think of that. And here's something else. Tell us about that part of it.
I think that was really important for me to get across. I mean, I will just confess something, which is that when
I'm leaning in for the confession. I think we all are.
Not a salacious confession, but when I read the Kirkus review, I actually cried because it meant so much to me because I felt like
Yes.
the reviewer really did understand what I was trying to communicate. There's one moment when a character thinks about how she doesn't want to forget that Samantha chose to drive that new girl home, and she thinks she doesn't want to forget goodness, how we offer ourselves to one another, that danger, that grace. And I think there are ways in which this is a dark book, but I also like to think that it is ultimately a hopeful book because it shows us that there are moments of love and kindness and goodness that are meaningful even when things can go wrong, and maybe even more meaningful because things can go wrong.
Oh, I love that perspective.
Thank you.
I'm going to think about that, for the rest of the night because I think there's a lot in there that can be really taken in. Ooh, some good questions coming in. Okay, first, Anissa would like to know, how difficult was it to move to adult novels from young adult? And second part of the question, did your writing process change? So just as background, Marie is a best-selling young adult author. So we abbreviate that as YA. And this is her debut adult thriller. Great question, Anissa. Marie, give us the skinny.
I mean, I didn't feel like it was so difficult, in part because I think that one of the things that makes YA literature so appealing, at least to me, and I think to other readers, is character. To me, I feel like as a reader, if I love the character, I will follow that character anywhere, no matter what happens in the plot. I mean, if I care about the character, then that means everything. And so, in that sense, I'm still using the same kind of love of character and my desire to craft good characters. Um, and yeah, so I mean, obviously, a book set in a strip club is not YA. And I knew that I wanted to write about my experience in some way, and to draw on that past that I have. And I knew that it wasn't for that audience as much as I love that audience. And so I just thought, hey, like I love reading adult books too. Why don't I try writing one?
Do you think you'll go back to YA, or are you going to stay over here in the adult world? Are you going to do both? What are your thoughts having done both now?
I think my next book will be adult, but that doesn't mean that I won't ever write for children and young adults again.
Mm, I love that. Okay, this one coming in from Kathy. She said the name of a character is so important, and for you to think about what the girls' parents would name them versus their stage names. She says she absolutely loves that.
Thank you.
Kathy, thank you for the great comment. Thanks for joining the conversation. Always a pleasure to have you. Um, let's talk about another review. This one from Publishers Weekly, saying that you paint moving portraits of desperate lives on both sides of the wall. Do you feel that you painted that these people are desperate?
Well, yeah. Um, are they desperate characters? And it's I think it's both sides of the law.
Hmm.
So about like strippers and criminals.
Detective.
Not that strippers are doing anything illegal, but there are criminals, there are drug dealers in this book, and then there are the police officers. And do I paint desperate portraits? I think in some ways yes, and in some ways no. I mean, I try to depict the women as normal women, as women
Hmm.
who just like they happen to have this job. They also have families, they have lives, they have grandparents, they have kids they're taking care of, they go on vacation together, they have brunch together. I think that, there can be this stigma associated with working as a stripper, but, you know, I don't think that I was desperate person. I think I just chose to do this kind of job. That said, there are some desperate characters, and I think in some ways, at least one of the police officers involved in the case, one of the detectives, is pretty desperate because she's
Mhm.
grieving. She's kind of a Mayor of Easttown character. I wrote this book before Mayor of Easttown came out, but I think if you like Mayor of Easttown, you'll probably like Real Easy because there's a lead woman detective and she's recovering or trying to recover from a tragedy in her past. Um, and I just one more thing that I will say about the review and about what I think that review gets right has to do with a comment that was made to me by a detective that I interviewed in Manhattan. Um, and he just said he actually his wife was a former stripper too, and he just said that there's a lot of crossover, more crossover than you would think between police and the kind of underworld, like casinos, clubs, etc. That he wouldn't be surprised to find that there are maybe lots of police officers or police officers in the crowd at a strip club. And he said, we just keep the same hours. Cops are up at all hours of the night. So stopping by a club at 2 in the morning seems maybe like a totally fine thing to do. I'm just repeating his perspective, but he wasn't a desperate character, but I think that the point of that quote is that there's a kind of similarity between the cops and the people the cops are observing or investigating.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that bit of research with us. This next question coming in from Eliza Jane Brazier. She said 2 questions if that is okay, and it totally is. I love it. Let's start with the first one. She said, who are your influences? So let's talk about your writing influences because you are a professor of English literature. So are you hanging with the classics? Are you down here in Thriller Town with us? What's going on?
Both. Can it be both? So
It
first
can
of all,
definitely be both.
I'm really excited about Eliza's new book, Good Rich People, which is coming out this month. It sounds so cool. Um, so who are my influences? I studied Shakespeare, and that's what I teach at Brooklyn College. I would say that Shakespeare is not necessarily influential on this book, aside from the fact that reading a lot of plays, I think, has given me a good feel for dialogue. It feels very natural for me to write dialogue because I'm used to just reading pages of nothing but dialogue. And Shakespeare is really character driven. Like Macbeth is all about Macbeth. It's really following like this character and his wife, who's his own special character. I think he was really good at writing character driven stories. In terms of more, I love a good mystery. I love a good thriller. Gillian Flynn is a huge influence. I would also say Tana French. I love her
Yes.
Dublin books. Also Kate Atkinson, the Jackson Brodie novels.
Ooh.
Those are just some, but I definitely just gobble up a great thriller crime novel.
I love Tana French, and I think her um gritty, grinding police procedural style, which the Washington Post, I believe, said is some of the greatest writing of our generation. I love police procedurals. They are a slower read, but I love getting into the grit of the investigative steps. And I see that and felt that as I read Real Easy. So that's fantastic. Let's get to the second part of Eliza Jane's question, which is there anything in the works for Real Easy to come to a screen, and would you be involved / want to be involved? Very cool question.
I mean, there's nothing in the works yet. We'll see, but I would definitely want to be involved. I'd like to be a consultant. I think that'd be really fun. I also, you know, sometimes I think about Big Little Lies and how they decided to rewrite the ending, I think, of the first HBO show. And it's crossed my mind like, oh, what if Real Easy had a totally different ending for an on-screen version? I'd be open to that. I'm really
Ooh.
interested in seeing what could be done.
Oh, fascinating. Oh, that's so interesting for several reasons. First of all, most authors aren't open to their work being changed. And number two, I'm already wondering how that ending might change. So this is fascinating. Thank you for the great questions, Eliza Jane Brazier. And I want to remind everyone to join us January 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, when Eliza Jane Brazier will be coming on the show to give us the scoop on her red hot new book, Good Rich People. And that is a special pre-launch event right here on Mystery and Thriller Maven. So come back then. It's going to be hot. All right, let's get to it. Kathy saying, excuse me if this has already been mentioned. No, Kathy, you're totally right. Do you differentiate your two genres with a different name or anything? Yeah, let's talk about that.
No,
Speaking
no,
of
I
names.
don't. No, I mean, I want people to find me. I also think, a lot of my YA readers who read some of the books that came out years ago are now adults. So even though I would not recommend this book for a young reader, I would recommend it to a young, someone who's an adult, and so yes, so I've just kept my name the same for my middle grade, my young adult, this adult, and even my academic writing.
Wow. And did you ever consider changing it, or you just were like, no, I'm Marie?
Well, I already had a fake name as a stripper, so I thought, been there, done that. Might as well keep my real name.
Can we know your name?
Um, I am
It's
not sure. No, it's a totally fair question, and I want to answer it, but I also don't know that I necessarily want to be identified by former clients or yeah. I so
Let's skip that one.
Okay.
Anissa says she loves Tana French, right? Tana French there's just something so riveting and so rich and so delicious about her writing. It's so gritty and so real. I don't know. I just absolutely love her too. Ooh, hey, Mike O'Neill. Welcome to the conversation. Great to have you. Mystery and Thriller Maven member there. Always a pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let us know what you think about it when you do read it. We can always continue the conversation over in Mystery and Thriller Mavens, which is free and open to all. It's a Facebook group for mystery and thriller fans. So if you're not already a member, pop on over and join it, because that's where the good, juicy conversations happen. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anybody's question. I'm scrolling back, scrolling. Anissa's saying that she loved your answer about characters, because characters are so important to her reading. So, Marie, while developing these complex characters, what was important to you? Like, what do you think? Because I loved when you said, if you love a character, you will follow them anywhere. And I think that's the truth for all of us, right? If you are not vibing with that character, it's real hard to keep reading. So as you were creating these fake people, these fictitious people that feel real to us, what do you think is the key from a craft perspective in doing that, in creating compelling characters that people will follow anywhere?
I think part of it is to show that they're flawed because we're flawed. And the people that we love are flawed too. And I think part of loving someone is knowing their flaws and accepting them. Holly, for example, there are three main characters in this book, two dancers, Samantha, the dancer who goes missing after driving another one home. And then Georgia, the dancer who's kind of roped into the investigation and agrees to pass along information that she finds and begins to investigate things herself. And then there's Holly, who is the lead detective on the case. And there's a moment when Holly does something that's kind of not cool. There are these two teenage kids. They have brought some information to the police. They didn't have to do it. And they happened to be high at the time. Like they had smoked some weed, and Holly is just mad because of her own deal, and she tells one of the other detectives to bust them. And he's like, "What?" for what? For the weed? You know, there's like so little. Like, why would you do that? And she's like, ah, you know, she's just mad and she wants to take it out on somebody. And it's not great. I mean, like, and you know, like there's a real life problem of young kids getting arrested for really minor things, and then having consequences that follow them for the rest of their lives. So what she does is not good. You know, like it's not what I would have done in that situation, even though it is her job. It's not what I would have done. But I think that I think you need to show characters making mistakes, even moral mistakes, and making some bad choices. I hope it's not like revealing too much to say that earlier, Sarah, you and I were talking about Samantha and why she stays in this not so great relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bad choice, but we also make bad choices.
Exactly. Yes. Because part of me was like, why does she, tolerate this? But the fact of the matter is people tolerate it every day. And that, that's just the truth. And if you had written it any other way, it might have felt a little less real. I loved the fact that Neil Mukherjee said that this is very possibly the best crime fiction book since Gillian Flynn's Sharp Objects. So incredible praise, likening you to one of your book heroes there from author Neil Mukherjee. Really cool review there. Marie, let's talk about the fact that you are a professor of English literature. So as a published author, both in the YA space and now the adult thriller space, what do you tell your students, your college students, about writing great work?
Well, part of writing great work is, I think, to read great work. We were talking earlier about influences, and I think that seeing how other writers craft their sentences and craft character. I mean, Real Easy is very far away from Game of Thrones. They're not similar, except for the fact that Martin does a really great job of navigating lots of different characters. And you come, like when you read those books, I think you come to care about like a vast collection of characters. Not that Real Easy is a vast collection, but there are several. And so I would say that, just reading his books influenced me. And then I thought, oh, like I could write a murder mystery that involves several different points of view from different characters. As long as I keep the pace going too. It's really important for me to make sure that every time we're in a chapter from somebody else's perspective, we're being given a new clue or a new piece of information or a new way of seeing evidence that we saw before, but through the eyes of a different character, it looks, has different meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, in the beginning when the new girl, Jolene, is drugged and people think someone slipped it into her drink, there's this question that maybe could linger for readers, which is, well, who did it? And that answer can only be given by the person who did it. And so later in the book, you find out who actually put that drug in her drink. I'm not sure that I answered your question very well, but I do like to recommend to my students that they pay really close attention to what they're reading.
I love that. Yeah, because before any of us were writers, we were readers and still are. And I love the idea of looking at it sentence by sentence, because sometimes I forget to do that because I get sucked in, which is every time. Chris Whitaker, New York Times bestselling author of We Begin at the End, raves that it is bold, compelling, brutal, and brilliant. I don't think it gets any better than that. I loved that one as well. All right, you guys, we have just a few minutes left. So if you have any questions for Marie about her book, about her writing process, about anything else, let us know in the questions. I'm just going to read a few more quick quotes because I loved these reviews so much. V.E. Schwab's the number one New York Times bestselling author of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, another fabulous book. Raved that that Marie is the rare gem, a writer whose prose is as splendid as her plotting. Are you a plotter? Did you plot this out? I mean, do you have Post-it notes all over your walls, or are you a pantser? What's the process look like?
No, I am not really a plotter that you can see. There's nothing on there. No post-its anywhere. I am not a plotter. I am a fencer, but I also write very slowly. So and I edit as I go. So it's just not my style to say write really quickly and then tear it all apart and
Mm.
piece it back together. I try to think um, slowly and carefully about things as I'm writing them.
I love that. I love that. Anissa saying this. Thank you, ladies. Has been a fascinating chat. Happy pub day tomorrow, Marie.
Thank you.
Uh, Yay. Thank you so much, Anissa. Always a pleasure to have you. I want to remind y'all that the book is not even out yet. It's out tomorrow. So grab your book copy tonight, and the good folks at Murder by the Book will send it out to you bright and early tomorrow morning. I'm popping the link into the comments. There it is. So click on over and click pre-order so that you too can grab your copy of Real Easy. Marie, is there anything that you wish that I had asked? Anything that you wish to share? What do you want us to leave this book having felt, having learned, having experienced?
Ah, that is such a good and big question. I mean, I think some of what I think I want readers to experience is some nostalgia. It's weird for me to think about the '90s as being historical fiction, but
Oh my God, that's
it
so
kind
weird.
of is now. It is historical fiction, and it was really fun for me to just think about like what was happening in the 1990s politically, in terms of technology. I think maybe I referenced someone having a BlackBerry. It's crazy to think about people having Blackberries or jelly bracelets. There's also a moment when Samantha just remembers, or Samantha's mother remembers how Samantha's homework was mimeographed. I don't know. Like I remember being in kindergarten seeing mimeographed homework assignments.
Yeah. Oh,
So
totally.
some of what I want readers to feel is, I think, a nostalgia for that time, or to
Ooh.
just remember that time, if they experience, and if not, just to get a window into it. And I think it is like the late '90s, like late. This set is set in 1999. It's a special time because it was
Yeah.
before the internet really informed so much of our lives.
Yeah.
It was a time when, if you wanted to go someplace, you printed out directions from atlas. Um, and, we didn't have cell phones in our pockets that were basically little computers. It was before September 11th. It was before the pandemic. Like there's
Right.
all sorts of ways in which it was a different world. And yet it was my world. And I guess sharing that is important to me. I also think that so much of what's depicted about strippers is really stereotypical.
Mm.
There's just like a lot of cliche about like that industry and the sort of women who work in that industry. And I think I wanted to destigmatize that to some extent and to give readers a glimpse into the backstage of a club, into the tricks of the trade, like what it's a job, like any other job, it has a skill set. And what is that skill set? How do you make money at a club like that? I think that as a reader and as a writer, I'm interested in process, which is what we use to describe, say, for example, like how a doctor does open heart surgery, or how, like just how professionals do their job. And so I wanted to show some of that. Um, and at the same time, I wanted to depict the women who work at the club as like full, rich characters with complicated lives.
I love that. I love that. Niels is saying, hey, from North Carolina. Niels, welcome to the conversation. Great to have you. Oh, question from Mike. He wants to know, so this will not be a series book. Is that correct?
I don't think so. I mean, it's possible I could. I have thought about like how Tana French is so amazing at taking a side character and then making that character the main character in another book. So I have considered that possibility, but whether or not I'd follow through on that, I'm not sure yet.
Ooh, good question, Mike O'Neill, as always, giving us the key to get that inside scoop. Thank you, Marie, for that answer. And Luana is saying she is looking forward to reading the book. Luana, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you grab your copy tonight. Kathy is saying she's really looking forward to reading this. Thank you, ladies, for your questions, for your comments, for joining us. I want to thank Marie for joining us for telling us the inside scoop on this book, giving us an inside peek into this world that most of us probably have never known anything about. So thank you for this. I absolutely loved it. And what a joy to host you. All right, everybody, I will see you at the top of the hour with journalist and book critic Aline Cogdell, here to give us her top picks for 2022 and the ones that almost but didn't quite make the list on 2021. I'll see you soon.